Today for story time, we have a Halloween special book. It's called One Monster After Another. It has a lot of monsters. This is written and illustrated by a famous author illustrator named Mercer Mayer. He wrote the words and he drew that's right. Look at this monster. He's got a pinwheel hat and he's even wearing a tie. That's silly. This one's wearing a top hat. We're gonna find out what they're up to. This is one monster after another. Here's the end pages. What do you see this monster doing? He is reading a book. You're right. Like me. Look at these guys. This monster thinks he's the mailman. He has a bag that says stamps on it. I think he might like to steal mail. Is that okay or not okay? Not okay. One day, Sally Ann wrote a letter to her best friend, Lucy Jane. She put it in an envelope and put the envelope into the mailbox. But guess who was watching? A monster. He's looking out from behind the tree. But before the mailman came, a stamp collecting Trollusk crept up to the mailbox, stole the letter, and gabbled away with a smirk and a snark. He took the letter. Look at the grandma lady says, "Oh my goodness, that monster's stealing mail." And the mailman is saying, "Get back here with my letters." So the stamp collecting Trollusk runs off with the stamp and the letter. But before he could tear off the stamp and collect it, a letter-eating bombinette flew out of nowhere and snapped up the letter. This is the letter-eating bombinette. He flew over, grabbed the letter, and put it in his mouth. Chomp. And he flew off. Over the blue ocean of bubbly goo, the letter-eating bombinette flew. And he's flying right towards a gigantic sea beast. Before he could find a nice place to settle down and eat the letter, a bombinette munching Grumly, that's the sea monster, reached up out of the goo and grabbed him. So first, the letter-eating Trollusk had the letter, or the stamp-collecting Trollusk, then the letter-eating bombinette, and now the bombinette munching Grumly. That's the sea monster. He has it now.
Yeah.
But before the bombinette munching Grumly could slither down into the sea for a nice bombinette lunch, snap! He was snagged by a big fishing net and hauled wiggly squiggly on board a fishing boat. A bunch of men on their fishing boat caught the bombinette munching Grumly. Yeah, they have lots of fish, and now they have a bombinette munching Grumly. But before the fishing boat could reach land, it was struck by a floating, furious iceberg. It's a big block of ice, but it looks alive. Scrunch! As the ship went down, the captain quickly stuffed a note into the bottle. He pushed the letter in for good measure and then threw the letter in the bottle into the ocean, the ocean of goo. Let's find out what happens next. But before anyone could find the bottle, a wild and windy typhoonigator, this typhoonigator, typhoonigator, he came storming along, sucking up all the goo in its path. It sucked up the whole blue ocean of bubbly goo, and it sucked up the bottle too, and then it blew itself away. Now the bottle's not in the sea of bubbly goo anymore. It's inside the stormy typhoonigator. Look, there's no more bubbly goo. It's all dry. By morning, the wild and windy typhoonigator was full. He had enough to eat. So full of fishing boats and bottles and bubbly goo that it had to let go. I think he's going to go. Bleh. I think. Let's find out. Down fell the letter, which was in the bottle, which was in the blue ocean of bubbly goo. Down fell the bottle, kerplop, right on the head of a paper-munching Yallowpappus, who lived on the edge of nowhere. This is a paper-munching Yallowpappus. The bottle broke, tinkle-plinkle, and out fell the captain's note and the letter. The Yallowpappus smiled. It had been such a long time since he had any nice paper to eat. He's gonna eat the letter. Do you think so? It's not the end. Gleefully, he grabbed the captain's note and munched it. But before the Yallowpappus could munch the letter too, the stamp collecting Trollus from the beginning came by and snatched the letter in his snark and ran away. The paper-munching Yallowpappus trundled after him, shouting loudly and loudly grimming. Rah, 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 rah. Oh, the Yallowpappus is unhappy. Suddenly out of the sky swooped the letter-eating Bombinat. He's back again. And he snapped up the letter in his beak. Now the letter-eating Bombinat has the letter again. Oh boy. Oh boy. But before the letter-eating Bombinat could eat the letter, he was snared in a net, caught flip-flop by the Bombinat collecting Grythics. That's this guy. He's collecting Bombinats in his net, and he caught him. I wonder what the Grythics will do with him. The Grythics, as everybody knows, is a Bombinat collector, not a letter collector. He had no use for someone else's mail. So he did what anybody should do with a lost letter. He put it in the mailbox and mailed it. The paper-munching Yallowpappus and the stamp-collecting Trollus and the letter-eating Bombinat watched helplessly as the Grythics opened an official-looking mailbox and dropped the letter in. It's gonna get to the girl's friend, Lucy Jane, I think, after that whole adventure. You think so? Let's see. And before anyone could steal the mailbox, the mailman rode up in an official-looking motorcycle. "Stop!" he cried. "Unhand that official mailbox!" And there was nothing they could do. After all, he was an official mailman. He's gonna get the letter to Lucy Jane. He's doing his job.
Yeah, I do.
Unhand that official mailbox. The official mailman opened the official mailbox and took out all the letters. Then he rode, leaving the yellow pappus and the Trollus waving their paws in the air and wailing at the Bombinat collecting Grythics. The Grythics didn't care a snickle. Paying no attention to all the noise, he walked home, clasping the letter-eating Bombinat firmly under his arm. The Grythics had the Bombinat. Out of mouth. And that is the end of the story. And on the last page, you see everything that's going on in this page? They're in the city. There's an alligator on that guy's porch. There's the letter-eating Trollus, or the stamp-collecting Trollus. He's still being chased. Oh boy. They're all going after the mailman. The mailman delivers the letter to Lucy Jane. There is a monster looking. He's sneaking, trying to get the letter. Maybe it's not the end yet. When Lucy Jane opened her mailbox that afternoon, inside the letter was the letter from Sally Ann. It said, "Dear Lucy Jane, nothing exciting ever happens around here. Please come and visit. Your best friend, Sally Ann." And there's Lucy reading the letter from her best friend, Sally Ann. Do you think Lucy Jane will go visit Sally Ann? So Lucy Jane packed up her things and went walking down the road as the stamp collecting Trollus watched on. Do you think so? Now it's the end. We finally got to the end. Did you see all those monsters in that book? They were trying to get that letter, but in the end they couldn't. The letter was mailed by the official-looking mailman through the official-looking mailbox. And that is one monster after another, as read to you by Mr. Beam and his group of awesomers.